You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show. The preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys. As always, the Chris Voss Show brings you the most amazing people, the greatest authors telling the greatest stories. And as we always say on the Chris Voss Show, stories are the owner's manual to life. Stories are the fabric of people's lives. I mean, that's basically what you do. You go through your whole life and you collect stories, and they enrich your life. They make it better. If they don't, well, you should probably just go listen to all the podcasts over and over again until you get it, damn it. Anyway, guys, we have an amazing young lady on the show. We're going to be talking about her new hottest book. It's flying off the shelves. But in the meantime, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss. And hey, if you want to buy me a coffee, mine's getting kind of low here, go to buymeacoffee.com/Chris Voss. We're screwing around with that. Maybe I might get a coffee or two. We have an amazing multi-book author on the show. Elyssa Friedland is on the show with us today. Her newest, hottest book is out June 11th, 2024. It's called Jackpot Summer, and boy, we've hit the jackpot. She's come on the show to tell us all about it. She is the acclaimed author of Last Summer at the Golden Hotel, The Floating Feldmans, The Intermission, and Love and Miscommunication. She's a graduate of Yale University and Columbia Law School and currently teaches novel writing at Yale. She lives with her husband and 3 children in New York City and is the best place on earth. Well, okay. We'll let her have that one. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. I think New York is the best place we can get into.
It is a wonderful city, and it is the first big city, I think, in America. So it probably should keep that crown, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah, but there is Vegas. Anyway, so Elyssa, give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Best place to find me really is Instagram, where I update often at Elyssa Friedland. And also my website, ElyssaFriedland.com, where you can find my touring schedule and more information about me, my other writing, kind of a random assortment of things I find interesting. And yeah, those are probably the best places. And then, some Facebook, but not as diligent about updating that as I should be.
The Facebook is always a good place to be. Most definitely. So give us a 30,000 review of your new book, Jackpot Summer.
Well, I'll hold it up here for you or if anyone else is watching this. Jackpot Summer is about a family with 4 adult siblings who has a beloved beach house at the Jersey Shore. I'm a Jersey girl. That's where I grew up, and I'm very proud of the Garden State. And this family has, like I said, 4 adult siblings, and their mother has passed away, and their father has decided to sell the house so he can retire in Florida. And all of the siblings convene at the house for July 4th weekend because the father said, you need to help me pack up this house. And of course, they're going through all their, boxes and childhood memorabilia. And one of the siblings, a commercial comes on, or a news story rather, comes on about this big Powerball. And they're, selling tickets at the 7-Eleven in New Jersey. And one of the siblings says, you know what? I'm running out. I'm going to go get us some tickets. And 2 of his siblings join in and they throw him some money and they say, we want in. And the 4th sibling, who's kind of a more stuck up corporate lawyer type, says he and his wife are there. And they say, we're not throwing in. That's so stupid. The lottery is just a tax on stupid people. And that's, idiotic. Well, of course, what happens. They win. And the story then follows what happens to each of these siblings after they win the Powerball and what happens with their relationship with their sibling, their brother who did not go in. And, they debate, should they cut him in? Should they not? And it's really a story overall. The 30,000 foot, angle that I would focus on is, does money buy happiness?
There's that too. There you go. Note to self, be kinder to my siblings in case they win the lottery, even though they're evil and stupid. No, I'm just kidding. They're nice siblings. No, they're not. Anyway, sounds like something I have some issues in my family, too. Can you
Don't we all?
There you go. You can't pick your family, but you can... I don't know. There's a dark joke in there somewhere. I'll just leave it off. So anyway, you can't pick...
I think the lesson is if you're with a lot of people... and they're going out to buy a lottery ticket, just give them a couple bucks and go in with them, because you don't want to feel awful when it's a winner.
That's true. And post numbers are probably, the more numbers are probably a good sign. So you've written a lot of books. How many books have you got under your belt now?
I've written 6 novels and 1 picture book for children.
Nice.
So 7 total.
There you go. So give us a little bit of your history. How did you grow up? What influenced you to become a writer? When did you first know you were a writer? And, what got you making up these interesting plots for people?
Definitely wanted to be a writer from the time I was very young, probably 5 or 6 years old. I was a huge reader. I always think, would I be a writer today? I think I'm a writer today because of how much I read as a child, but I also, was a kid before the iPad, iPhone. I could watch Saturday morning cartoons and then have to wait for the commercials to be over. I read during the commercial breaks. And I don't know. I mean, these days I know I would just be so distracted by everything else. And so I actually feel really lucky to have grown up when I did, because I read so much, and it really influenced me to become a writer. It's something I did in my spare time, just even taking computer paper from my parents' office and just, doodling. And I really loved it. And then I went to college and I did the college newspaper, and I worked really hard on that. And then it was time to graduate and become a real person. And I was terrified. I definitely couldn't really just graduate and become a novelist because that doesn't pay. And I needed money. So and moving back in, despite how much I love New Jersey and where I'm from, moving back in with my parents in Jersey was not that appealing. And I was, I moved into an apartment in New York City, and I, with a bunch of roommates, and I worked for a year at, I was like, oh, I'm going to write on the side. Of course I didn't, because I was exhausted. And then when I wasn't, I was going out partying. And I ended up applying to law school because I felt kind of too scared to take the leap to become a professional writer. I said oh, well, law school is it's a good degree to have. And who knows if I'd ever have made it as a novelist. And this is a really good, stable job, et cetera, et cetera. And I worked as an attorney for 3 years, and I was just miserable. I hated it. I hated every second of it. I did like law school because it's fun to continue being a student. But then when I actually had to work at the job, that was not as appealing. So
the learning part was easier, huh? You probably liked reading all the...
Yes, I liked reading the cases. I also just I like school. Like school's something I'm good at. So I liked that. But then the working part, I think I just wasn't a great lawyer because I just didn't care. It's really hard to be good at something if you don't care. And after 3 years, I quit, and I said, I have to give this a shot. And I sat and I wrote my first book, and I got a ton of rejection. Like, I'm not one of these people who just had this miracle story where the first agent they sent it to loved it. And then the first publisher it was sent to loved it. It was not like that at all. I had a ton of rejection. I revised it 1 million times, finally sold it. And then from that point on, it's been, more steady.
There you go. So, I mean, the power of rejection, I imagine you learned a lot. You said you did a lot of revisions, and it sounds like maybe that helped you hone your skill a little bit with that rejection.
I think so. I think it was just a really good life lesson, because up until that point, I pretty much had gotten most things I had applied for. It was more straightforward. You work really hard, you study for this test, you do all your work, you give it your all, and, things usually work out. But writing is, first of all, I had a lot to learn and to improve, but also it's just really subjective. And so I don't think there's really any book in the world that everyone is going to love. And are certainly very, very few books like that. And so there's also just the subjectivity of this. Like, you go and you submit a book to an agent and a publisher, and everyone has a different opinion about it. Just like if you go see a movie with friends and you walk out, it's not like typical that maybe the whole group says the exact same thing. It was amazing. Usually people have different opinions, and books are no different. It's really subjective. And so that was the other thing. It wasn't just about like, did I reach a certain level, but I had to reach a certain level and then connect with the right person also. And some of that is like, just like alchemy and luck also. So that's the other thing. There's just, I think there is a luck component to it. And when it comes to luck, it's out of your hands to some extent. And that's like, you just have to kind of accept that you can do everything right and it might still not work out, which I think is a valuable lesson.
There you go. It's hard work and opportunity, combined for a little bit of luck. But you've got to be able to put in the hard work. I mean, you got to be able to place yourself in that position.
I think it's like you do the hard work and you just say, well, at least I did everything I could.
Yeah.
So you don't have regret.
Yep. Because regret is, I don't know, it's awful. Sounds like my dating life. Anyway, so let's talk about some of the things in the book. You're billed as someone who is, let me get the quote here pulled up, right? If this is from Jane L. Rosen, author of 7 Summer Weekends. If Elyssa Friedland was not appointed or anointed, I'll get my quote right here. I can't read. I clearly didn't go to school. The queen of the family drama before, this one surely cements her crown. So you like writing family drama?
I love family drama, but with a lot of humor also.
There you go.
So there's lots of family drama. First of all, thank you, Jane Rosen, for that very generous quote. And I do love her book. Well, she's written a number of books as well, but her most recent one is terrific. I love writing about family because it's very relatable. Everyone has a family, and people seem to like reading about families that are more dysfunctional than their own. Maybe it makes us feel happier about our own situation. But also, I think just you feel less alone when you see that a lot of these issues are universal. And I also just love writing multiple point of view because I think so much of what goes wrong in families is misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. And so by writing these family stories, and I always have multiple point of view, so the chapters alternate between the characters.
Oh, really?
Which is super fun for me because then I get to write in different voices and I get to write across genders and ages and circumstance, which is really fun. But my primary motivation is because I want to show how much of the drama and the tension actually comes from misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. And so by being in multiple people's heads, you're able to show a conversation between two people and be in one person's head. And then you might see the other person, get offended by what they said, but they've totally misinterpreted it. So you're in one head and you see, oh, that's not the way, brother and sister are talking, and the brother, thinks he's being kind and generous, and the sister thinks he's being awful, and it's really just a case of misunderstanding. And I love being able to show what's actually happening in multiple people's heads, because I think if we all just sort of like took a moment when we feel upset about something, whether it's friend or family, and we just say, well, am I totally sure that I'm right to be insulted? Like, do I even know for sure what they meant, Or even to be able to show, well, yeah, that person said something really nasty to me, but I'm not aware that 5 minutes before they just got this awful piece of news, So maybe you're in someone's head, you're in their chapter, you're in so-and-so's chapter, and you see that she just got fired from her job. And we're privy to that as the reader. And then 2 minutes later, she runs into her brother and maybe says a nasty comment, and he's all upset. But we as the reader saw, hey, but that's because something really crappy just happened to her right before. Yeah. And so I love that, being able to peel back the curtain and show the reader what's actually happening with each of the characters.
There you go. You're making me think about this. And one of the other problems you have, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the professional at writing about this, but one thing I realize is that, I've got one sibling that no one gets along with, and it's clearly all him. But the problem with families is there's a lot of history in the complicated history. And so you can have like events like you talked about happen, and somehow it triggers, something that happened 30 years before. Like, well, in my childhood, you punched me in the arm, damn it. And I'll never
Yeah, well,
forget
that definitely comes up in Jackpot Summer. Well, they're these four siblings, and no matter how much they've changed from childhood to adulthood and their lives have evolved, they still look at each other the way they did when they were children. They still harbor these grudges, like from the punch in the back of the car, or the time you embarrassed me in front of my boyfriend, et cetera, or you were mom's favorite, or dad never punished you as much, or you always got nice clothes and I only got the hand-me-downs, and it's like all this resentment. And so it's sort of interesting to be able to explore that and think, well, what would it be like if you just met this person today?
Yeah.
You didn't have all this backstory from, all this like years of some good memories, some bad, some, childhood sibling rivalry. And I think it's like when you get back with your family and you spend time with your family, everyone sort of reverts to their childhood.
Yeah. All those things come back whether you think about them or not.
Totally.
And, I was the first child, so I took all the good stuff out of the womb, all the brains, the beauty, and pretty much everything.
That, yes.
And I just left leftovers behind and curled up Snickers bars.
Well, sometimes the youngest children say, oh, mom and dad didn't know what they were doing until they got to me. They just honed their craft until they got to the youngest.
Do they really? Oh,
I've heard that argument from younger siblings.
Usually as first children, we just get whipped, man. We get all the abuse where it's like they want us to be the perfect children, and usually, they're micromanaging us down to the second, and we have to be the golden child, and by the third or fourth child, they're like, whatever the fucking kid wants to do. I don't care.
Well, it's definitely true in terms of rules. I mean, all the things I have 3 children. And I know like the bedtime got later with each child, and the screen time got extended with each child, to the point where I'm like, I don't even know where my third child is right now.
Do we have a kid right? It's like that old, do you know where your kids are? It's 10 o'clock thing they used to play in our day.
Well, it's only 2:15 where I am, and I don't know. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, as long as, as I think 10 is when you have to find them, according to Andy Warhol and some of the people that were in that PSA back in the 90s or 80s, 90s.
Right, so I have plenty of time.
Yeah, you got plenty of time to find them. Hopefully you've got one of those Apple tags on them, so you'll be able to location turn on.
Just microchipped.
But it sounds like it gives you just microchip. It sounds like these sort of environments give you a lot of playground to work with. I mean, we have a lot of people who come on the show and write for characters and stuff, and they're writing novels or romance or different things, and it can be hard writing for these characters. But man, if you got a whole history of people's issues that they have over a course of a lifetime and growing up with them, you got a lot of material you can work up with, and then you can just make stuff up. There's a one time when there were 8 that happened, and now
that's why I love being a novelist. Just the world's my oyster. I can make up anything I want, and you want it to sound realistic. And when you read your work out loud, you want to make sure it sounds like a conversation people could actually have. But I can put my characters in any situation that I want to, which is great.
Does your family kind of be careful around you now because like don't do anything that's going to get us in the novel?
No one's careful around me. I wish they were. I think I'm not a very threatening person. I sort of wish why aren't you more scared of me? Like, why aren't you worried that I'll eviscerate you in a novel? But no one seems to be treating me any better because I'm a novelist or acting cautious around me, unfortunately.
You'll have to take somebody out or something. We've had a couple novelists on that they make it a point that if you piss them off, you're going to end up in the novel.
I think I should just maybe next time I sit down at a family meal, I should just be more direct about that.
Yeah, or just look at people askance and squint at them hard, and they're like, "What are you doing?"
Or like be taking notes during the meal, and then just shut the notebook when they come over.
Yeah, shut the notebook when they come over. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just working on some new characters.
I I think, all right, now I'm much more excited for Thanksgiving than I was.
Just screw with people. That's what I like to do. What are some? And I noticed that you have this really cute kind of cartoonish, almost reality sort of thing. Meet the Jacobsons, Sophie, Noah, Matthew, and Laura. These are almost like character cards here. You guys have on the
Totally. Well, that was the point. Yeah.
yeah.
So the publisher created these beautiful illustrations taken from the book cover. So, you can see, my book covers tend to all look the same, even though I've had different artists create them, but the publisher, wants a consistent style.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I think you have 4 siblings who are in this crazy situation where 3 of the 4 of them win the Powerball.
Mm-hmm.
And the publisher just knew how important it was to introduce these 4 characters to the reader, even before they start reading, or to entice people to read the book. So you get a sense of not only do we see, get interested in how is this family going to resolve the situation where one of the 4 siblings didn't, hit the jackpot with them. But also, what about the 3 siblings who won? They're very different from each other. So how is the money going to affect them all differently? Like, it's not a case of just 4th sibling, what are we going to do? But also, how are these 3 people going to cope with winning the money? Because winning the lottery is actually pretty terrible for a lot of people.
It is, yeah. A lot of people go bankrupt.
They go bankrupt.
They lose all their friends and family.
You end up, many end up bankrupt, more alone than ever before, depressed. I mean, it's I read a really interesting opinion piece, actually, in the New York Times that the Surgeon General wrote about a patient of his when he was still a practicing doctor. And this patient had a nice life, and he worked, I think it was in a factory, at a blue-collar job factory, lived in like a small housing complex. And his life changed basically all for the worse. He developed serious health problems. He lost all his friends and became very lonely because he won the lottery. Wow. And he quit his job, and he moved from his sort of like tight housing complex where like there was a neighbor, every foot away, to a big house in a gated community where he couldn't see any of his neighbors from his, front step. And he not only got so emotionally lonely, but that took such a toll on his health that he got physically sick from it. And it's crazy to think this guy won the lottery and his life, totally tilted off its axis in a negative way. And the point of the op-ed, the Surgeon General was trying to make the point, like, how important community is. And you're better off with less, but being around people than, being a lonely millionaire.
Oil and friends and money, like oil and water. It's hard. It's hard when you get successful and get money. Everyone wants to borrow it from you. Everyone thinks you have so much of it.
Well, that's definitely the case with one of these siblings. He's the youngest sibling. He's the one who went out and bought the tickets. And he definitely is the most susceptible to the people who are coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, I need money for this, or can you help me out? Or will you invest in my business? Or we used to be friends, I need this. And, he's just like, he's the most easily manipulated. And that becomes a huge problem for him.
Yeah. It is. People, from my understanding, when you win the lottery, like, you have people writing you that you're just, I knew you in elementary school. You have people hunting you down from way back when, and you're just like, what? Like, I didn't.
Which is something I uncovered when I was doing research. Like, I had no idea. So weird to me. Like, I can't imagine if I saw on the news that someone I used to know won the lottery. Short of just sending them an email and writing congratulations, which I probably wouldn't even do that if I hadn't talked to them in years. But the idea of writing to them and asking for money seems so insane. And yet people who win the lottery have they're changing their addresses and getting, their physical addresses and changing their email addresses and unpublished numbers because people are just tracking them down.
Yeah. It's crazy. I remember sometimes I would have employees come to me and they'd be like, hey, Chris, I need to borrow like $20,000. And I'd be like, okay. And I would say to him, I said, how come I get this wonderful honor of trying to loan you money? You're asking me for money. And they'd be like, because you have money. And I'm like, well, will someone in your family loan this to you? Like, why is this my problem?
It's so hard to turn people down also.
Oh, it is.
When you know that you have more than them, it's so hard to say no. And certainly if you're a lottery winner and it's so public just how much you have, it's so difficult. So this character in the book, that's really his main struggle, I would say, when he wins the money. It's just like feeling like he can't say no to anyone. He knows he's being taken advantage of, and yet saying no just feels like it's not in his character. He feels guilty that he won. Like, who is he to turn down people?
Yeah, I suppose kind of like a survivor's guilt of some way.
Yes.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
So exactly.
Yeah, you're like, well, how come I'm so special, But no, this sounds like a romp that's a ton of fun. It's billed as a great beach read as well. So there you go. Give us your final thoughts as we go out on where people can pick up the book, and .coms where they can find out more about you.
So again, my website, ElyssaFriedland.com. You can order the book off of the website, and of course, Amazon. Lots of copies on Amazon, and pick it up there. I will say, for anyone who's listening, if you like audiobooks, the narrator, it's not me, you don't have to listen to my voice, a very talented voice actress recorded it, and she does all the siblings and the grandpa and the grandkids, and she does an amazing job. She knocked it out of the park, and the early reviews of the audiobook have been incredible. So if you are interested in listening to it on Audible, I can tell you it's amazing. I've sampled all the different characters, and she's amazing. And I just hope you take this book to the beach this summer. My dream is to see, a random person reading the book, in a coffee shop, at the beach. And it's at, Barnes & Noble. Hopefully it's at your local independent bookstore, definitely on Amazon. You can get it Walmart, Target, all those places too.
I want to catch somebody reading my book. That sounds like wonderfulness.
Yes, that would be very gratifying.
Yeah. I have people come up and they go, I read your book. And I'm like, really? Why? But catching someone reading it would be like really freaking cool. I'll put that on my bucket list. Thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all the fun times there, Elyssa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and letting me chat about the book.
There you go. We learned a lot about families today, ladies and gentlemen. So there you go. And winning the lottery. Order the book where fine books are sold. June 11th, 2024. Jackpot Summer. Be a winner. There you go. Go to goodreads.com, Chris Foss, LinkedIn.com, Chris Foss. Chris Foss, one on the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. If you want to buy me a coffee, because I know you do, go to, let's see, what is it called? Buymeacoffee.com, Chris Foss. And be good to each other. Stay safe, or else we'll see you next time.